I couldn't believe it when Betty White died yesterday, and actually somebody asked me to do a video on it, but I was already looking into it and going, oh my God, this is really esoteric because of what she represents. She represents the white rose. So I want to get into how her whole career has been mimicking the second stage of alchemy, which is the albedo, which is the bringer of light, happiness. It's also to do with, um, the angel, the white angel or the white lady, and it's the white rose. Okay, so I'm going to go into this, and there's lots of stuff that they kind of coded when they announced her death in some of these articles that they put out, and they were referring to other esoteric artwork and stuff in these articles. So we've got a little bit to go through, but it's actually really interesting and really fascinating that she's been kind of playing this role through her life. First of all, if you haven't watched The Hunger Games and understand the usage of the white rose in that movie, this, is going to be a little harder for you to follow because it's all really important that they were using the white rose. He was the evil person in the movie that was controlling society and keeping it divided and having the capital city where everybody was like allowed to have whatever they wanted, food, and they were all happy and bliss, and they would pick people out of these territories that weren't in the city, like they were segregated out, most likely because they didn't have a pass to get into the capital, right? Whether they had to do something to their body, that's never revealed. Why they were, I don't believe they revealed that, why they weren't allowed in the city. But the whole purpose of it is it's segregation. And so the man that's making that happen, he represents the white rose. And this is Donald Sutherland, and he has like a red jacket on with a white rose, so that's like representing the last stage of alchemy, right? The red and the white. So they kind of make a twist in the movie where they're making you fear the white rose. His name is Snow. So I've always got my ears and eyes open for Hunger Game symbolism. And of course, because of Lady Gaga going to the inauguration for Biden dressed in the Hunger Game gown. So this was the gown that was used in the movie, and she was, almost identical to the actress. CNN's headline was "The Eternal Rose is Betty White." Right? So they're saying she's the rose because the character she played in the golden years is the rose. Now you got to remember, Ascension is the golden years. There's supposed to be 1,000 years of golden years. And like I mentioned in my last video, your DNA is actually looks like a rose. When you look from top down on the ladder of the DNA, it's really a rose. And it's done from a pent. It's done from like a pentagon, and it's kind of like on top of each other turning, and it ends up making it look like a rose, just from the shape of the pent. And of course, David Bowie did a song called Golden Years. And the very first performance he did of it on Soul Train, he was the first white performer on Soul Train, and I believe Elton John was the second. Here's a picture of Betty White with her rose brooch. She died 17 days before her 100th birthday. So we get the number 17, which we now know ties to the letter Q. So the Q is the quintile. You can see the aspect here. It's a 72-degree angle, so 7 and 2 goes to 9. So it's Aquarius, freedom, or Gemini, pillars, depending on which side of the path you're going to go on. Let's hope we all get to the Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, the rebel, the phoenix. They mention here that she was the commentator at the Portland Rose Festival. In Portland, she was associated with the Grand Floral Parade. Here's a staged photo with her in the Tournament of Roses flag behind her. Here's another picture with her carrying white roses. Here we have 9 Chinese ornaments. One of them is holding a ball, passing it to her, and I can't figure out the symbol on it. If anybody knows what that symbol is, I would love to know. Here's an interesting shot with all the shoes, which are the souls. And there's a white angel and a dog picture, which the dog is God. That's how they use the dog esoterically. But the soles of the shoes are interesting, and almost like Get Smart, you know, like they talk into the shoe, and there's number 99, and she died when she was 99. But the soles of the feet is Pisces. Pisces is the 12th house, and that is ruled by Jupiter, Pisces, and also Neptune. So Neptune, the god of storms, sea storms, water, and the moon represents the second stage of alchemy. And it's also to do with like the white goddess and the white rose. Okay, so we have all those symbolisms happening. And so the soul, every time you see somebody holding up the shoe, they're referencing Neptune, Jupiter, and Pisces, 12th house. The 9th house is the spiritual house, and it is ruled by Sagittarius, which is Jupiter, which is the Golden Gate, right? And so here she is looking like an angel. Here she is with her husband with the white rose on. When Betty White turned 99, this meteorologist stops to say, I'll get back to talking about my wind and blizzard conditions, but I want to take a moment to acknowledge Betty White's turning 99 today. My ideal password partner. Now, why they're saying password is because her husband hosted a show called Password. His name was Alan Luden, and she never had any children with him. She raised 3 of his own children. In the Hunger Games movie, this white rose was sent to Jennifer Lawrence. So it says, from all of us here in the capital, that's where they have all the, the elite people, I would like to wish you a happy Valentine's Day. So they're linking it to Valentine's Day. And a happy Hunger Games. I'll see you on March 23rd. President Coriolanus Snow. Okay, so his name also has reference to Shakespeare and an ancient Roman warrior. So I want to get into that a little bit, because why did they pick that name with snow? There's a reason for it, and it ties to the storm. And so it's really fascinating that the Hunger Games, I never knew this, that the white rose was tied to Valentine's Day. So I'm convinced the storm is going to be probably on the 16th or the 15th, which is the holiday for Rome, which is celebrating the wolf that nursed Romulus, whose Rome is named after. So on February 15th, that's the festival. But the 16th is the full moon. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a storm on Valentine's Day, or something's going to happen. So Coriolanus is a tragedy in William Shakespeare's, one of his plays. And it's all to do with this Roman leader, Caius Marcius Coriolanus. So he gets kicked out of Rome, and then he causes revenge, and then goes down and tries to take down Rome. So there's kind of like this, taking down Rome. So it's tying into Rome, which we know Rome is to do with February 15th. So there's actually like a kind of a joke about, the name, because it has anus in it. And it's in conspiracy theories and everything. Like, is it really how it's pronounced? There's different ways of pronouncing it. But I'm thinking they're just trying to take away from the first part of the name, the Coriol, what that meant. So I wanted to go and dig on that. And of course, it comes up with a mathematician, and it ties into storms and cyclones. So there was a mathematician that was named Coriolanus, and this Coriolanus force is describing to do with the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere and the poles, and how this force creates it either to go clockwise or counterclockwise, right? It's like the toilet bowl, like if you're northern hemisphere, it travels one way, and the southern another. So it's tying into that force with the poles. So this, that's why they use the name. And then, of course, it ties into cyclones. And cyclones, to me, looks like golden ratio. It's like, it's just the spiral, right, that you see in nature a lot, but it's also the math of golden ratio, which is the God's math. But they mention these cyclones are also on the planets Mars, which is the I Am, Aries. It's also like war, the war god. Jupiter and Neptune. Well, Jupiter and Neptune rule Pisces, the soles of your feet. 12th house. Pisces is attached to Cetus, the whale in the sky, the monster whale, and that's where the Omicron Mira wonder star is. So it's all tying together to Pisces. It's really to do with spirituality. In constellations, Pisces is the spiritual constellation. In houses, it's ruled by Sagittarius, number 9, but it's really Pisces. Pisces is the spiritual constellation. Now, the white rose all ties into World War II, and people that were in this school were called the White Rose because they were rising up against Hitler's regime and trying to, fight for freedom of speech and everything. And they were trying to rally people to go against what Hitler was doing, right? And this all, they got arrested on February 22nd. So we got the 222, which is what this year is now. It's the 222 year. So in total, the White Rose authored 6 leaflets, which were multiplied and spread in a total about 1,500 copies. So they were printing pamphlets and trying to get people to change their minds, and they ended up getting assassinated for it. And their group was called the White Rose. Oh, I shouldn't say assassins. They were literally executed. So they were tried, they had no voice, they had no lawyer, and then they were executed. So they're saying here the government, or rather the party, controlled everything, and the news media, the arms, the police, the armed forces, the judiciary system, communications, travel, all levels of education, from kindergarten to universities, all cultural and religious institutions, political indoctrination, started at a very young age and continued by means of the Hitler Youth, with the ultimate goal of complete mind control. Children were exonerated in school to denounce even their own parents for derogatory remarks about Hitler or the Nazi ideology. Okay, so that's what they were fighting against. On the 3rd, 8th, and 15th of February, like I said, which is the holiday for Rome, so they used tin stencils to write slogans like "Down with Hitler" and "Freedom." So this is what it wrote. "Isn't it true that every honest German is ashamed of his government these days? Who among us has the conception of the dimensions of shame that will befall us and our children when one day the veil has fallen from our eyes, and from most horrible of crimes of infinitely outdistance every human measure, reach the light of day?" And that was the first pamphlet. "And why do you allow these men who are in power to rob you step by step, openly and secret, of one domain of your rights after another, until one day nothing at all will be left but a merchandise state system, presided over by criminals and drunks? If your spirit already so crushed by abuse that you forget it is your right, or rather your moral duty, to eliminate this system." And then they also stand up for the 300,000 Jews that had been murdered in Poland. Like, oh my God. I totally get how people just sit by and do nothing. Where I'm living right now, because they've created a military state here now, where you're fined $6,000 if you're out after 10 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning. It's really like a police state, and nobody cares. Everybody just follows along. It's like, okay. But yeah, it's really fascinating. But I totally get how Hitler got in control. Makes sense. After the fact, now there's memorials for these people that got, murdered from Hitler and everything. In Paris, a high school of 17, again, is named after the White Rose, and a public park pays homage to San and Sophie Scroll. These were the people that were executed for speaking their mind. So the New York Post yesterday, when you were reading about Betty White's death, had this little kind of video clip of one of her earliest shows that she was in. It was called Life with Elizabeth, and it was her doing skits almost like I Love Lucy, kind of a show like that. So they're doing this skit at the end of it where he's making her hold 3 glasses of water. So I'm thinking like Neptune, and then he leaves her there. And she can't, like, because he's put 1 between her elbows and 2 in her hands. So I'm like, they have the water. His socks get really wet because of her ironing skills. So that's the Flat Iron Building in New York. Then she's like sitting there like she's Whistler's mother. It's a famous painting. And then she gets him to take a picture saying, oh, you look like Whistler's father. And then she takes a picture of the chair being empty. And then she's like, oh, Whistler's off his rocker. So she's making all these jokes about this painting. So I had to go look and see about this painting. So here's the famous painting, and it's known as Whistler's Mother, but that's not its official name. The official name is the arrangement in gray and black, and the artist is James McNeill Whistler in 1871, and it now is in the Louvre in the United Arab Emirates. So the black and the white in alchemy have to join together to create gray. So I guess this is why this painting is so relevant and why it was in Betty White's skit. So everyone knows, or at least has seen, James McNeill Whistler's mother, Anna McNeill Whistler, who was immortalized in her son's 1971 oil painting, Arrangement in Gray and Black. But few remember Whistler's father, George Washington Whistler, who in his day was one of the most famous engineers in America. George Whistler accepted in 1842 an invitation from the Russian Tsar Nicholas I to build a railroad between Petersburg and Moscow, and moved his family to Russia. The project presented an engineering challenge since the Tsar had decreed that the railroad run in a perfectly straight line between the 2 cities. Legend has it that he placed a ruler on a map and drew the line himself. However, his thumb bumped the pencil, causing a slight jog in the line, which planners faithfully recreated rather than dare question the Tsar's handwriting. Wow. So it wasn't easy for him to work. There was all these weird conditions, and then he maintained steadfastly American in spirit, refusing to address the Tsar as Your Majesty and refusing a high-ranking commission in the Russian army. He labored on for 7 years under difficult conditions, finally succumbing to cholera in St. Petersburg in 1849, 2 years before the project was finished. When the railroad was finally completed by lesser hands, the first 2 trains to travel it collided head-on. It's like our 2 timelines colliding. That's what it feels like to me. You know, like we're going to collide and there's going to be like this disbursement of time and reality. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I'm sure this is a big, huge part of why this painting is so important. Whistler also laid out a route for the Western Railroad linking Boston and Albany, a route so difficult it was said that it would be like laying a railroad to the moon. Okay, so it's like, here we go, we're going to the moon. No, I'm not going to the moon. But Whistler completed the project, constructing what was at the time the longest and highest railroad in the world. He constructed the first Keystone Arch Railroad bridges in America, which are not only still intact, but several remain in use. Now, the Keystone, this was in the 17th letter posts. I always wondered what it was. It's probably a clue to it or a big part of it. I think it has to do with, you know, you're on a train. You're on the soul train, and some people aren't on the soul train. They're on the crazy train. So James Whistler was 15 at the time of his father's death. This is the painter, was offered a chance to enter the Russian Imperial School for pages. His mother decided instead to return to home in Connecticut and seek administration for his son into West Point. In December of 1850, Whistler's tutor, Roswell Park, the top man in the class of 1831 and former West Point chaplain, who went on to become a noted clergyman, wrote an appeal to the president, Millard Fillmore, seeking at a large appointment for the boy, which was granted. Little Jimmy Whistler entered West Point on July 1st, 1851, 10 days shy of his 17th birthday. So we get the number 17 again, July 1st. Whistler became known among the corps and cadets for his comedic sketches. He would take the opportunity to make drawings wherever he went, on loose paper and books, on tent flaps, desk stools. So he had a keen sense of ridiculous. In a recitation room at church and almost everywhere, he would sketch in a second or two cartoons full of character and displaying the utmost niceties of appreciation. Anyhow, it's like he was an artist, right? He was really an artist. For his West Point exam, he was required to discuss silicone. He began. Silicone is a gas. That will be all, the instructor said, and Whistler was marked deficient, and the academic board voted to expel him. Whistler was mortified. He wrote a lengthy letter to the Secretary of War, future Confederate President Jefferson Davis, asking for a re-examination. He said that after 3 years in the academy, all my hopes and aspirations are connected with the institution and the army, and that by not passing, all my favorite prospects are ruined for life. So in the end, if silicone had been a gas, he said, I would have been a major general. Whistler's classmate Marcus Reno noted that if Whistler had been commissioned, no one would have heard of his mother for the painting, but maybe more people would have remembered his father. So I guess his father didn't get remembered for all his engineering work. It's kind of weird that his father's name is George Washington Whistler. Then he did this artwork in the summer of 1852, produced a 4-frame sequence entitled On Post in Camp. In the first drawing, first half hour, a cadet stands at attention with his musket shouldered. The second half hour shows him leaning against a tree. In the third half hour, he sits at the base of the tree, and the last half hour, he is sound asleep. So he's kind of like, saying that, being an officer can put you to sleep, basically, but you're at the tree. So it's tying into the tree of life, and if you're asleep or not, or, anyhow, it's funny. What's even more funny is he did a painting called The White Girl. So that's probably why, it was tied into her skit, the Whistler painting, because it's not so much about that. Well, it's because it's the gray going together, but it's also because he did this other painting called The White Girl. And so Betty White is the white girl. So his painting is obviously, important. Now it's saying Whistler's father, not Whistler's mother in the Simpsons show. They call it Whistler's father because of Homer, right? It's unfair to judge a president on his first 300 days. This was on the blackboard for this episode. The Simpsons text is backwards along with the music, and God comes along and turns it around. Oh, that would be nice. And See Zombies and Ghouls is on the blackboard as well. And you can go visit your grandparents at Springfield Retirement Palace or Castle or something. So that's what's on the board at the beginning of this episode of Whistler's father. So this painting's important. It doesn't get put into The Simpsons and be in Betty White's show because it's not important. And I do think it has to do with these two trains crashing for the father. And for the mother, it's representing, mother, the mother. And, that was looked down upon in England because she looked so stern in the painting. But then, other people thought it was a beautiful painting. So I think it's just really tying into those two symbols. And the mother being the gray instead of the black and white, right? It's like 50 Shades of Gray. You want the gray, not the pillars, the black and white pillars. Now, Whistler's father in The Simpsons was episode 29. Remember my last video? I showed you the trigram of the Chinese I Ching, and it was coming out to the number 29 was water. Okay, so this is tying into water. And then they use water in her skit when she, actually is doing a skit about the Whistler painting. They put water into it. So water is Neptune. Right? It has to do with your soul being washed clean, or putting you more in a fog. Neptune. We can put a veil over you if you can't see. Here they're showing about the Simpsons show. Homer is trying to comfort Maggie and playing peekaboo with her, but she gets bored, and then Homer is once again upstairs looking after Maggie when he loses sight of her. He then hears a strange whistling from Maggie's room, thinking it is a bird or the radio. So a strange noise, okay? So I'm like, is that a high-pitched noise coming from your phone? Turning people into zombies? I don't know. He unplugs the radio to find Maggie whistling a tune, and Homer has a dream that Maggie's gift is for his benefit. Okay, so she's singing a song, and it's for his benefit. And then downstairs, Marge is advising a plan to make the best pickup room for the school. So she's doing all this creative stuff. And then Marge walks up to Julius, which is Julius Caesar, right? To me, it's Julius Rome, to ask him how the room is looking so far. And Julius responds, "Can't believe it's the same room that found all the dead rats in." I believe it's referring to George Orwell's 1984 book that has the rats in it. I found somebody talking about the room 101, which is really the two pillars, right? 101 is 11, which is the pillars. So there's a room 101 in his book. And here's his quote. "You asked me once," said O'Brien, "what was in room 101. I told you that you knew the answer already. Everyone knows it. The thing that is in room 101 is the worst thing in the world." Winston learns that the meaning of the room 101 when O'Brien tortures him with rats. Room 101 represents a person's worst fear, and Winston's worst fear is rats. So on one level, rats represent fear. So room 101 is your fear. That's what this realm is. It's all about fear. Once you overcome your fear, you are able to see the illusion, and then you can get out of here. And fear is Pluto, right? And he represents your soul, and he's to do with Scorpio, and Scorpio is the constellation that you leave on through transformation, represents death, and through Ophiuchus, which is healing, right? Because Chiron rules Ophiuchus. It's all about healing from the fear. On another level, however, rats represent depravity. So throughout history, humans have associated rats with squalor and pestilence. Rats carry disease and thrive on human garbage. Rats rank among the world's most beast-like. So Winston's universe is filled with humans who act like we are treated like beasts. Outer party members and trolls are eventually become drones, meaningless, inhuman cogs in the party's machine. In essence, Winston and his fellow citizens become rats, trapped in Big Brother's cage. If people allow forces such as those represented by Big Brother to rule, then they will become no better than the mindless, multiplying rats. There you go. That's the meaning of the room with the rats. Okay, back to Betty White. So they do a lot of advertising her birthdays, just because of her age, I guess, but also I think it has to do with the rebirth, right? It's like the birthing. So this was one of her birthdays. This was, I think, in her 93rd birthday, but it's Hawaiian. So then I'm like, anytime I see Hawaii now, I always think of it like a Valentine's Day, because that's when James Cook got murdered in Hawaii. So I'm like, I'm thinking it's linking to Valentine's Day. We did this other cake where it's called Betty's World, and it's like a big fairy kind of thing with a truck almost coming off the mountain. So that kind of reminds me of those New York pillars, which I do believe is representing the Brooklyn Bridge. And there's the rebirth and the two hands of God again at that St. John's Church. Her 90th birthday, she's dressed up like an aqua, kind of color blue, which is to do with mermaids. And then she has this red and white cake, which is the Rubedo, the red and white, Valentine's. And these are for her 100th birthday, which she never got to. Here's another skit with Newsweek. And I just listened to this, and because a lot of times when they do these skits, they drop stuff, right? And I think this was a Saturday Night Live skit. And she's saying, they're saying, oh, you're alive, you're alive. She goes, yeah, I'm alive. I was, I went up in my my air balloon, and something happened to it. And next thing you know, we were flying over Catalina Island, and then we got dumped out there. And we lived on this island, and I was living with this guy. And then they're like, well, where is he? And she says, well, and then he shows up, and he goes, my name's Greg. And she's like kind of flirting with him, a younger, man. And then he says, well, I'm Greg, or gray. So he mentions gray again, which is the black and the white mixing. So I'm like, Catalina Island, I better go check out what's there. And there's the town, the main town is called Avalon. And Avalon is kind of like, paradise, right? That's the reference to it. So this island must be really important. It must have some interesting history to it. And this really old, really amazing building was built back in the 1930s. And this is called the Catalina Casino. But it's not a casino. It's actually a theater that they had movies in and stuff in a ballroom. But it just sticks out, like it's so magnificent, right? So I'm like, okay, there must be some huge history into this. And it was Wrigley's Gum that ended up building it. Mr. Wrigley, who was the owner of Wrigley's Gum. And of course the building's red and white, but then they put these red and white lights. So to me, this is like the Rubedo. So I wanted to see here. Yeah, the museum has figures in 1935, the film Murder on a Honeymoon. So there's the moon again, the honeymoon. I don't like that, the honeymoon, because that's the nectar of the gods. I swear to God, it's like they're up in the moon collecting the nectar, just like in the Chinese astrology where they have the rabbit mixing the elixir of life on the moon. So that's called the rabbit moon. So a portion of the 1974 film Chinatown was filmed there. And what else was filmed there? The Last of Us. That's a nice title. That's a video game. And then the theater is featured in the episode 12005 of California Gold. Okay, that makes sense too. So anyhow, it's a very spectacular building. And the theater interior walls retain the original Art Deco murals of John Gabriel Beckman. The theater's facade has a painted mural of an Art Deco style underwater world scene. So it's Atlantis. This island is representing Atlantis, which was later replaced with replications of Beckman's design created by Catalina pottery-style tiles. So they took the painting away and then created tiles on one portion. But I'll show you some of the old pictures. It's absolutely beautiful. So it's basically an underwater Atlantis. It's kind of what the artwork is representing. So the height equals to a 12-story building. It was built to serve as a theater on the main floor and a ballroom and promenade on the upper level. Movie studio tycoons such as Cecil B. DeMille and Louis B. Mayer and Samuel Goldwyn, this is MG Studios, frequently came to yachts to the casino to preview the newest cinema productions. It also serves as the island's civil defense center, large enough to accommodate Catalina's entire year-round population within its walls, and stored enough food and water for all Avalon's residents for 2 weeks. Okay, so it's like a drop shelter. It's like a dropout shelter. Yeah, it's basically Atlantis, man. It's like, this is like the island. Structures of the predecessor's Sugarloaf Casino, so it was called Sugarloaf before, can still be found in Avalon's abandoned bird park. The bird park was conceived by Mrs. Wrigley in the 1930s, and at the time, it was one of the largest aviaries in the world. So we got the birds, and then we got the underwater, so it's like, that's the symbolism, they do use freedom as the bird, and then also the freedom is like going under the sea, back to Atlantis. That's the symbolism for the free soul. So here's the tile work that they've replaced it, and you can see she's underwater. This is the theater. It's like a big wave, right? And then up above it, you see Venus in the shell. Now, this is the same picture as they have, on the stage. But if you look, it's a red person, right? So it's like, the person's like the red. It's the Rebirth. But there's a face going forward and a face going back. So we have like the Janus, for like January, the two-faced person. And then we have the red dot here, which I'm assuming is the blood moon. And then you have the dolphin. You swim with the dolphins. This is a famous line in one of David Bowie's songs. So, yeah, and you remember I said the Pisces, the two souls, the fish, were actually dolphins? So, originally, that's what they represent. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. There's artwork here with a red and white Rebirth fish with a woman riding it. The theater is spectacular. Just look at some of these shots. It's like different lighting, all the Art Deco. It's just beautiful. It does look like Atlantis underwater. You see that right there, there's a black, that's actually a deer. So we have the black deer. That's symbolic for the horns of Taurus. It really represents Princess Diana, or the goddess Diana, with the deer, because that's one of her symbols, and it's to do with the moon. So Neptune is always with the moon. That's the second stage of alchemy. That's the white rose. That's the Albedo, Betty White. And on the other side, they have like horses. You can see it here a bit more up close. Look at the paintings. It's just beautiful. And then they have like these, look like druids. Now, the Golden Girls did this book, and they see that they're the 4 diamonds, so they're diamond bodies. Now, what's crazy is they did an episode where she was black-faced. The blackface goes back to Wales and the Cymry. The Cymry, the blackened ones, means that it's to do with being burnt, okay, so that you go through the fire, right? So the episode is number 23, so we got 23 skidoo, right? 23 we know is freedom now. It's skedaddle. And the show, 3rd season in 1988, mixed feelings in with Dorothy, Bea Arthur. Son plans to marry a much older black woman. Okay, and because she's black, they try to discourage the marriage. So Rose and Blanche enter the room in black and dark mud facial masks. And then she says, "Oh my Lord," Lorraine's mother says in disbelief. Rose responds, that's Betty White, this is mud on our faces. We're not really black. Okay, so, but that's all to do with, it's not trying to insult black people. It's trying to represent the Khmer, the blackened face. It's called the Morris dance. They do that in Wales, and it really means to burn. Okay, it means the phoenix. It's a very, very old tradition. It's over 500 years old, but they're starting to cause, um, you know, racism. They're saying it's causing racism, so now they're starting to cancel the dance because of people getting upset by it. So, but that's not what it really represents. They're trying to tie it into racism because they want division, right? They want always the black and white, right? Which is what this painting, this Whistler's painting, is all about. The gray. You know, you want to get to the gray, so you're not seeing everything in black and white. That you see everything from the other point of view. So that was the 23rd episode, and it's all tying into Valentine's Day with this 23 skidoo. I put this on I found this after I did the video, my last video, and I put it on the front page, but it says here what it means, this shoe, so very new, why 23 skidoo? Well, I'm telling you, the bottom of the sole of the shoe, it's really your soul. But if you'll be my Valentine, this shoe, my love, will not fit you. So they're just making a joke about it, but they're just putting it, oh, there's Valentine's Day, and it's to do with your soul. Okay? Again, we have reference to Valentine's Day. Then she turns 99 last year, and on the cake, I don't know if you can see it, one side has looks like a red rose, and the other side is a white rose. So we got the Rebirth. New York Post used the red and white Rebirth with the pearls, and then on her older picture she has a heart necklace on. She's seen wearing the heart as much as she's seen wearing the rose. This is the red and white Rebirth dress. She's done a few red and whites, and you see the books are red and black in the background, and then the red and white dress here as well. Then she's dressed up as the rabbit, you know, Alice in Wonderland. She also was an advocate for animals, and of course a snake around her neck. But that's that's basically the 8th house of death and transformation is other people's energies. It's your Kundalini, which is Ophiuchus. That's why Asclepius holds the snake, the 13th zodiac. That's your way out of here. Here they're saying this is a high school photo, but it doesn't really look like her. But they're saying the wittiest Betty White and Dickie, what's his name? Poteet. And they're using the hangman. Okay, so we got the hangman. Here she's casually wearing a Black Flag t-shirt which says everything went black. And that t-shirt is from a band called Black Flag, but their original name was called Panic. Here's the full t-shirt, scissors, and then the original meaning of the Black Flag. It was used by the enemy forces to signify that no quarter will be given. What that means is that during war, enemy combatants are going to be killed rather than taken prisoner. So it's almost like, okay, you got to remember, like, the whole ascension thing is represented by death, right? So it's like, you can say it's almost like a freedom flag because you're saying that you're not going to be taken prisoner. You're going to die rather than to be taken prisoner. So it's being used more in modern day now as well. They did a news article here putting it with the Trump supporters, Black Flag, understanding the Trumpist latest symbol. Of course, they use threatening symbol because anybody that fights for freedom, just like the same as the White Rose in World War II, is considered a terrorist, and they need to be executed because you're not supposed to stand up for your rights and freedom. Now, I was looking into the release date of the Hunger Games, and that was March 12th, 2012, so that was the year of the water dragon, right? So we got the water dragon, and now we've got the water tiger this year, 10 years later. So what I didn't realize was that Taylor Swift is tied into the Hunger Games. And it's because of a soundtrack featured the song Safe and Sound. I hate that friggin' word safe. I hate it. It's, yeah, Safe and Sound and Sound of Silence. It's like, I think it's really symbolic because, in mythology, you get taken over by the sirens from the sea, the bad mermaids instead of the muses, and they take you to your death by a sound. And then they're showing us in all these movies that people are being like hypnotized by their phones, the sound of their phones, right? So I don't like the safe because you need a lock to get into a safe. It's like a prison, right? And safety is inside you. I don't like when somebody tells you to be safe. It just really irritates me. So, this Safe and Sound song, which was sung by American singer Taylor Swift, featured with the band the Civil Wars. Okay, so they do this song, and they're just doing it in this old pioneer shack in the video. But the band's name's Civil War, and I'm sure they're trying to create the Civil War. It's like, it's the whole thing. And so then the year 2012 ends up being the 2-2, right? It's a 2-1-2, but it's 22, it's the Fool. And then we get March 12th, which is 3-1-2. So backwards is 23. So in the video of her doing this Safe and Sound song for the Hunger Games, she's dressed up as the white goddess. She's like, she's walking in the woods barefoot, going across the river, and goes on these graves, and and it's the whole thing is kind of like back in time, the white goddess walking through the woods. It's basically the goddess Diana. Then she sees the deer, because they have to have the deer with the goddess Diana, and then the deer fades away because it's not real, it's just an illusion. The clock shows midnight, which is when the blood moon is in the spring, on May 15th. And then she sees this mockingbird pin, which is all ties into the Hunger Games and the mockingbird. And that's why Lady Gaga wears one the same as the actress in the Hunger Games. The mockingbird represents freedom. So I found this yin and yang circle that is actually, naming the Negredo, the Albedo, and the Rubedo. The bull and the red blood moon behind it, which is like Red Bull. And Red Bull, their slogan is, Red Bull gives you wings. Yeah, because you can get out of here when the blood moon happens, when the sun is in Taurus in the bull, and, the blood moon is happening at midnight on May 15th. And even Betty White knows about it, and she's got the bull fingers. She's got it rocking. She knows. So Ryan Reynolds, the actor from the Free Guy movie, when she passed away yesterday, the world looks different now. She was great at defying expectations. She managed to grow very old and somehow not old enough. We'll miss you, Betty. Now you know the secret. Well, I think she knew the secret beforehand. Honestly, I really do. Here's another picture with red hair and the red top, with the red and black, which was her books were red and black when she had that Rubedo dress on. And then I found this in the Tiffany store. They're selling Rubedo metal. So, it's literally everywhere when you start to notice it. Katy Perry sporting her Amanita Muscaria outfit on because she is now going to be a resident performer in Las Vegas. She just announced a couple of days ago. And oh yeah, fire beats roses again. You want to burn. You want to get out of here and burn and do the red and white Rubedo and skip time, steal time. And, now we know what all these symbols mean. Fire beats roses again. Well, what the heck does that mean? Yeah, roses are the War of the Roses. It's the two pillars. Okay, and you have to get to the fire to get out of here, to have freedom. And here's a white rose with the vase of the slogan or the password of the Hunger Games. May the odds be ever in your favor. In this 2022 New Year, The Hunger Games year, it's looking like, guys. It really does. So rest in peace, Betty White. Bliss to you guys.